Hi. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. I'm
I'm
Kelly,
guessing I
April.
should get AirPods.
Well, I don't often use them, but today I did because I've got more jackhammering going on in my background. But
Yeah,
we
I'm
had
gonna
to
grab,
change rooms away from the noise. If I didn't
right?
have them, I would lose my mind right now. So this is what I've learned. A doula's life is often in a car.
I was laughing so hard because I looked back at the rest of your feed and I was like, I cannot be the only one that's ever been in their car.
No,
And
you are
when we
not.
were
The other
talking, I was like,
doula.
I'll be in the car.
Yeah.
I do stories on Instagram and they're called In My Car Stories.
Oh,
And
that's
I
so funny.
started doing this thing where like I sing it and I'm like, In My Car Stories, because like I'm always in between clients. I have 4 kids of my own. So it's
Sure.
like constant.
Yeah.
But it was so funny that I looked back at some of your videos and I was like, yep, it wasn't just me. It's the
Yeah,
doula
no,
life.
that's so funny. I was just thinking about it, mom life, because
For sure.
we're living in a hotel now and kind of coming back and forth, and I just we've got 5 kids, and it's
Oh
just
gosh, yeah.
always crazy. But everyone I talk to, for the most part, they're all moms, and so I'm like, but this is
Yeah,
how we roll.
it is.
It's totally winging it, and we
Yeah,
fly by the seat of our pants, and it's like, hang
exactly.
on.
That's
So
right. I
so
had a
it's
shirt
totally perfect, April.
that said motherhood winging it. And I'm like, I say that all the time. I'm like, you know what? You
Yeah,
think somebody else has it figured out. They don't. It's fine.
that's
We're
right.
all winging it. And we're
That's so
winging
true.
it in our cars, apparently.
That's
So
so true.
yes.
So it's so funny. So
Yes.
so my family started Prince Lionheart back in 1973, and my
Oh
folks
my
started it in my
gosh.
grandparents' garage. But my brother and I did a brand refresh kind of a while ago, many years ago actually, before I was even a mom, I think, and
Wow.
we decided that our mission was to provide for life's grand improvisation, which is parenting, because we are all
Yes.
winging it. I mean,
That
that's
is
truly
so
like our mission,
good.
is to provide for the master winging it
I
plan
love
that we
it.
are all doing.
That's
And so
so true.
it's worked out
That's
pretty well,
excellent.
because as a parent now, I'm a step parent as well as a parent, and it's just, I mean, we're totally winging it. So the whole point of this,
For sure.
it's our toolbox series. So it's like, we kind of do lives every once in a while, and it's really to give
Yeah.
parents more tools for their toolbox, because
Yes.
nobody gives you like a parenting toolbox, like, here
Nope.
you go. Oh, you're pregnant? Here you go. It's like,
Right.
oh, you know what? I had more resources at my fingertips for getting married than I did for having a baby.
Okay, I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, it's not okay that you probably know more about your cell phone plan than you do
Totally.
about what
It's
happens to
so
your
true.
body in labor.
It's so
Because I'm like,
true.
you know what? Like, it's just what's at our fingertips. And now, though, we have
Yeah.
all this information in front of us, but it's not all great information. So it
Right.
feels like we should be empowered and know more, but we actually don't. So it's like
Yeah.
what you're saying about parenthood is true about adulting, right? Because we
Yeah.
talk about that all the time. I have girlfriends that are like, adulting is hard. No one ever taught us how to adult. And I'm like,
Yeah.
then they give you a baby. And you're
Yeah.
like,
No,
okay,
right? I
great.
know. It's totally true.
It's just a constant roll.
I saw something on social media the other day. Like, I sure am glad, I studied geometry, because
Yes.
it's really come in handy during parallelogram season as opposed to tax season. It's like, it's
Right.
so true. I mean, I feel like we
Yes.
need to do so much better with our classrooms and preparing people for
True.
life.
I actually just
But,
talked to a high school class. This
oh, cool.
teacher is like life skills class, and she
Yep.
had me in to talk about postpartum. She had a midwife in to show them a placenta. She had
Oh,
me
wow.
in. She has baby wearing like consultants in. She's doing amazing. And I like, kid you not, I
That's
left this
awesome.
class so encouraged by like
Oh,
what
wow.
these kids were excited about, what they were learning about, like the fact that she was touching on these things. Like we were literally talking about postpartum depression with like 15-year-olds. Like it was
Wow.
huge. Like I was
Wow.
like,
That's
I will
amazing.
come anytime you want me to. But it's like exactly that. So like there are pockets of teachers like
That's
seeing the
great.
need for these real conversations, and I was
Yeah.
thrilled to be a part of that. So like
That's awesome, because
that is
that's come
really
a
cool.
long way since the flower
So
baby
fun.
when I was in school. It's
Yes.
like, here's a bag of flour, carry it around. It's like, oh, this
Yes.
is fun,
I know
but
that's not
I
anything
left
like
the
it.
flower baby somewhere. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fine. Yeah.
that's cool. That's really
Yeah,
great
it
to
was
hear.
really cool.
We
Yeah,
need
that's good.
we need one of those in every single classroom.
I
Like, they
agree.
need to bring back home ec and
Yes.
like put it on steroids,
Right.
and
Level
have it be
up.
like technologically
Yes,
relevant, and
for sure.
for the pressures. I mean, there's not even a class on social media and what it does to your psyche when
No.
you're an adolescent. It's like,
Well, I think they're
or when
like
you're an adult.
still figuring it out, right?
I
Yeah,
know,
we
but
don't even know yet.
well, we can only do what we can do, right? But we can
Right.
do a lot, so never forget
Agreed.
that. Um,
I'm holding
So
this.
we've got folks who've bared with me through the room change,
Yes.
and I told them feel free to fire away any live questions because we
Perfect.
can go ahead and answer those. But we do have some questions that came across that, first of all, I always like to start with kind of how did you find your path in
Oh
your
yes,
specialty
that's
is
so much.
postpartum doula, right?
Yes.
So how did you find your way to doing what you do?
My joke is that I work from here up, right? So like birth, like I love birth and I'm a birth nerd. But I work from here up, here up.
Right,
That's always my joke. I'm like heart, boobs, brain, like this is
right.
me. Well, my story of like how I came to this work is actually really old. My mom was young when I was born. So I have three younger brothers that were born when I was in sixth grade, when I was a freshman
Okay,
in high school, and one that was born my senior year in high school. So I grew
okay,
up in this house full of babies, watching my mom, who was a single mom to me for many years, mother these boys. And so it was this great gift of seeing motherhood from a very young age, not just being mothered, but watching her mother them,
sure.
and kind of like how it blew the lid off, like all the mystery about what motherhood really
Uh,
was, right? So it wasn't like glamorized for me, but also it was like equally beautiful, right?
yeah,
Watching her do it and like seeing that it wasn't glamorous or like
right,
pristine on white sheets with this beautiful baby. It was
right.
dirty and like tiring, and you
Yeah,
know, she was a breastfeeding mother, so it was like exhausting.
yeah,
Was sort of this great gift. So yes, there were babies at my you know, high school football games when I was a cheerleader, right? There was like these toddlers. I have a picture of me my senior year in high school holding my youngest brother. I'm like in my prom dress and he's like 3 weeks old. So like my growing up, you know, my teenage years were kind of flooded with these babies, but it was like this awesome, you know, chance to see what life really looked like with little people and the
sure.
sacrifices that she made, and to her credit, what she did to balance like my life and theirs. Was just sort of beautiful, and I became really enamored with that and what that looked like, because I could see her as the mother she was to me, and then how
Yeah,
different she was as a mother to them.
right.
And I honestly, like, there was never a feeling of like, but what about me? It was like, this is really cool, like look at her,
Oh, wow.
you know, like look at her go. And so I kind of learned really early on the realness of it.
Hmm.
And I don't think I ever like thought it was anything other than a gift, you know.
Hmm.
And that was probably a credit to her too. She is somewhat amazing.
Yeah.
But you know, I saw the struggles too, and she was honest with me. So she laughs and says that you know, April, you were a postpartum doula since you were 11 years old, and I think that's sort of
That's
true. You
awesome.
know, my senior year in high school, my brother, the baby, was upstairs with me, and we had a first floor primary bedroom. We lived in Texas, and I would hear him and bring him down to her to nurse in the middle of the night.
Oh
So
my gosh.
I
So you
actually
totally
don't
were.
do night services now, but I
Right.
did then. You know, I had a lot more energy. So that's how it started for me. And then after having my own kids, and having my couch be a place that I welcomed other moms to tell them like, hey, we're all winging it, and like, no,
Yeah.
you're kind of great, like you're doing really well, and if that works for you, like that's what's good. Just as a
Yeah.
friend, you know, I was kind of doing that from my couch when I had little children, like little kids. So then when I kind of realized it was a real thing, and I was like, all right, like let's see what this is. And it felt kind of fluffy at first. Like there was like things out there about maternity concierge and like some of those
Right.
things when I first saw it. And I was like, no, it needs to be meatier than that for it to be interesting to me.
Hmm.
Because I'm not like about surface conversations. Like I don't live there.
Right.
I can do them for a while, but then I'm like, no, but really tell me like what's going on, and like
Yeah.
let's get into it, because like I want to know you, and it can be
Yeah.
imperfect and it can be this. And when I realized that that's what I could do with like women in transition, I was all in.
Cool. That's a really cool
Yeah,
story. I think
thanks.
it's interesting because you had a gap. So sixth grade, you were what, 11 maybe?
11.
When
Yeah,
you're so we
yeah,
had a gap too. I We had 10 year gap, and so we
yeah,
started over in
yeah,
diapers. And I thought it was really, you mentioned how your mom kind of, it wasn't a burden on you. You
right.
helped, you were able to help, but the ways that she would bridge momdom between
Hmm.
the gap, right? And I found
Yes.
myself faced with that challenge. There's no book, there's no anything, right? Or
No,
there maybe books, but I don't have the time to read them.
no,
And
you
I
don't.
found,
You're
I
just doing
remember
it.
like, I don't know that I did it so well, but I remember one thing that I was able to bridge the gap with the kids where I
Hmm.
had my 10 and 11 year old who, you know, saw this baby getting so much attention, right?
Right.
Because I said, look, they're useless. They're pretty
Mm-hmm.
helpless. They rely
Mm-hmm.
on us for everything, right? You know, you guys have skills. This baby
Right.
doesn't. And so it's kind of
Right.
like, oh, well, yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah.
that's why we don't need the help, right? But
Uh-huh.
it was fun because one day I said, okay, let's take a picture using technology. And I said, all right, let's take a picture of all the faces the baby can make, right? And the baby was
Mm-hmm.
like, going, you know, all these crazy faces. And I
Yeah.
said, and then you guys try to make them too. And so they were trying to replicate the baby face, taking
Mm-hmm.
selfies. And by the end of it, it was so cute because in my camera reel, I just have so many pictures of them going like,
Yes.
you know, making these
So
babies.
good.
And it was like one of those moments where I'm like, okay, we managed to bridge both gaps because the baby
Yes.
got attention, the older kids got attention. And I'm like, I wish I had so many more of those. But
Yes.
in reality, I
But it,
didn't.
yeah. No, I mean, like that, those moments are like what matters. Like, I remember my youngest brother being born and he had this real squishy face, and my mom was like pushing down on his forehead and like, just like, look at this, you know, like poking at him. And like, I had the other boys and like, I was watching them when he was being born. And like, it was just this like experience. But I remember that and I was 17 years old. You know, it's
Yeah,
like those moments where you're all together and it's like, this is us, this is what
yeah,
we're doing. And I think that's really what like sticks with us, right? In
yeah.
those transitional times. So that's amazing.
Well, we can
Yeah,
only hope as moms that those are the times that stick,
for
right?
sure. Yes, for sure. We'll hear about
Because
that
we're
one
all
for
winging
sure.
it. So
Yeah, yeah, who
therapy
knows?
at some point,
Yes,
perhaps.
we're gonna
All
find
right.
out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that's how you got into postpartum. So
Yes.
for everyone else, because I actually just learned about doulas, what they really I'd heard about them. I've, you know, birthed 3 children of my own. Never had one, but so
Mm-hmm.
postpartum doulas, once the baby's out, then you
Mm-hmm.
kick in. But maybe you can kind of give an overview and some
Sure.
specifics for those who are pregnant and going, yeah, I've heard about it, but I don't know where it
Right.
stops and it ends.
Well, typically a postpartum doula is someone that comes into your home when you're home from the hospital or wherever you gave birth, or, you know, if you birth at home, whatever it is, they come in
Sure.
after you and your baby are kind of a dyad in your own space, right? So
Okay.
it looks like that in your home, in your environment support. And typically it was sort of like light housework and stuff to aid with recovery. But
Okay.
as we're like telling people what we do, it kind of has become this personalization thing. So
Hmm.
I am a breastfeeding professional, so I'm a CLC, so I can work on breastfeeding with clients. I
Oh,
also
cool.
really love like maternal mental health, and I don't purport to be a mental health specialist, but I gather that information and put that into practice in my time and space with them.
Hmm.
Also, you know, my background, I went to school, I have a master's in education. So if you have a toddler in your house, like I love your toddler. Let's talk about your toddler and this transition for them. So what I love
Sure.
about postpartum doula work, and when I see my peers, everyone has their strengths. So when someone
Right.
asks me like, hey, what does a postpartum doula do? I'm like, I don't know. What are you good at? Like, if you love women in this time, in this space, and you want to support families, then find your specific, you know, strength. Is it
Yeah.
food? Like, are you great at nutritious meals? Then like go in and like spoil this family with that, but say it outright that that's like where your
Your
passion is.
superpower. Yeah.
Yes. And do it, but because that's not mine. And if they want
Right.
that, then I will let them like come to you. So really, I would love to see. So like my definition is like two parts, right? Like I would love to say traditionally, this is what postpartum doulas have done, and it's this service of you and your infant, your newborn in your home, aiding in your recovery from this deal that your body just went through. But
Right.
also, what I would like to encourage people listening or watching to know is that this field should be growing and evolving to honor the person doing the work and let
Hmm.
them bring their biggest strength. So I don't want to make a box and say like postpartum
Right.
doulas do this. Search postpartum doulas in your area, like see them face to face and like find out what they really love to do in your space and if that's going to serve you. But very baseline, it should be someone that helps you adjust to this time home. They should have recovery knowledge about recovery after birth, whether it be vaginal or C-section. They should have some breastfeeding education if that is what you're
Hmm.
intending, you know, how you're intending to feed your baby, because that like dictates so much of the rest of your reality.
Yeah.
And then they should just have a holistic view of what it looks like. And honestly, they should see you before you have your baby. truthfully. So like
Yeah.
emergency calls, you know, about like everything is sideways after I get, you know, I'm home with my baby, are harder. I would rather have a relationship in pregnancy with a woman who knows that she wants that kind of support, because
Hmm.
then we have like an ongoing relationship, and
Sure.
seeing you when you're not in the middle of a giant transition and maybe like, you know, the wheels are falling off gives me a really good assessment of what's going on when, you know, I show up.
Sure.
Right. So like
Yeah.
if it looks a
Makes
lot
sense.
different than it did when you were pregnant, then like it's very telling to me. So I would love to see more interaction during pregnancy
Hmm.
with families that leads us into a calm postpartum period. So it's kind of all of
Gotcha.
those things.
So when, if you could have your kind of perfect timeline,
Hmm.
what week of pregnancy would you recommend people kind of,
Pea
uh,
stick.
yeah. Feast it.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. Pea
So
stick.
before the
So
hubby even knows.
yeah, right. Like I have gotten those. I do get those like, hey, did you know? And I'm just like, hey, okay, I'll be the first one. It's fine. Or I guess people are
That's
pregnant
amazing.
because I'm sort of a savant in that way. And I'm like, hey, and they're like, yes. But you know, really early on. So obviously, like my tagline now is from pea sticks to parenting. And
Yeah.
I do love that because I think it's all encompassing support.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what I would love to see is this idea that like having someone walk you through these transitions and your pregnancy is equally as important as a curated nursery, if not more.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Right.
So that's the thing. I had a dad not that long ago tell me like, hey, what's the nursery for? After we went through this big thing about how babies just want to be held when they're born and like being close to you if you're a
Good
breastfeeding
question,
mother
Dad.
is important. Yeah, I was like, that's a really good question because I don't really know, like for storing
Yeah.
his stuff.
Yeah.
But he was like,
Yeah.
because all the emphasis, right?
Yep.
We live in a very capitalistic society, like
It's
buy this
true.
and do this and your life will be better and this will be beautiful. And then I come into your house after you have your baby and I'm like, your baby just wants held. And they're like, but I have all these things for the baby. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I know. I wish I would have been here to tell you you don't need them. So
Yeah.
now
No, it's
I'm
true.
there to tell them they don't need them. So I would
Yeah.
love to start, you know, ideally like around like 19, 20 weeks, like right in the middle before we do a
Okay.
shower for a first time mom so that we can talk about what you really need and start setting your expectations like as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, that's really true. I mean, we come from a consumer product background, but
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, babies, they need so little. They need love, shelter,
Mm-hmm.
food, okay, diapers,
Yes.
but they need
True.
so little. Like when I was living in London, my cousin didn't buy a crib, or she had, I think she had a Moses basket, but
Yeah.
guess where the baby slept? In a drawer.
Yes.
Like they pulled out a drawer of a dresser. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's how they used to do it old school
They
too. But
did.
in
Yep.
small London flats, I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
totally legit. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
You'll have
I'm
I
like,
have so many moms that say that. They're like, you slept in a drawer. And
yeah,
the, you know, the moms that I'm serving are like, what?
yeah, I know,
She's like, this
right?
crib is lovely, but you were in this middle drawer in our
Yes,
dresser.
it's so true.
And the mom that like I'm working with is like, oh, and I'm like, that sounds right. And then the
Yeah,
grandmas love me. They're like, right, right. And I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you know.
right.
Uh-huh.
It's so
I
true.
do real
No,
good with the grandmas.
yeah, I'm sure. Well, it's very
Uh-huh.
true. I mean, a lot of that is for it's, I think it's part of the journey though. It's part of the nesting journey, which nesting is
Yes.
it's a real thing, right?
Yes.
And how do you prepare your body? Like I've seen, women who work outside the home, who have a hard time, kind of with identity. Who am I?
Yes.
What's becoming of me? I have a hard time with that. And I've found
Mm-hmm.
that kind of the nesting helps them. It's almost like a transition, right? It's like a
Yes.
kind of a rite of
It's
passage
visual.
transition. Yeah, it's super
Yeah, it's
visual,
a
and it's something that
visual.
they can control when they
Yes.
can't control their cravings, their heartburn, their indigestion, their
Mm-hmm.
their pee urges. Like there's so
Right.
little. I mean, it's so amazing. Like it's just my word was weird. Like it's so weird what's happening
Weird.
like
Mm-hmm.
inside, right? I mean,
Very
it's
weird.
crazy and
Mm-hmm.
weird and amazing and all that, but it gives them
Also
something that
weird.
they control. Yeah, totally weird.
Yeah.
Like
Yes,
super
you're
weird.
right. So, you know, it's not that they shouldn't have anything or that they shouldn't make the transition. It's that we're just flooded with the
Yeah,
message that
it's true.
we need so
Yeah.
much. And then what I see on the other side of it when they are home is a lack of confidence in their ability to be enough for their baby. So that's where the line
Oh,
is,
I see.
right?
I see.
It's like, you're right. We need very little. We do need
Yeah.
some things, and setting it up is really important. But it's almost the mental work, like you hit on,
Yeah.
of setting it up and not the actual things.
Yeah.
right?
Controlling what you can, like feeling
Yes,
prepared. Okay, I got the
yes,
nursery done, I
yes,
painted it. And it gives dad something to do too, because often it's
right.
like, hey, you paint it, or
Hmm.
whoever the partner may be, it's like, check, control what you
Yes,
can.
yes,
Because
and
imagine
readiness.
for partners who, if they aren't carrying a baby, or if they are, I mean, everyone has to go through a process to get their head around this crazy
For
thing
sure.
that's happening.
Yes.
So, well, that's cool. So it's really interesting. I love the pea stick to parenting, because
Oh, thanks.
I would never think about, like needing a doula or calling a doula from pea
That
stick like
early. Hmm.
that early. But that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
what does the touch point frequency look like when it's like someone's calling you from pea stick? A lot less
Well, I
frequently than
just, yes. Well,
postpartum.
I started this new project where it does start earlier. So if you're a first time mom, we do this registry. We kind of talk through birth planning. So I joked that I work from here up, right?
Yeah,
I won't go to
sure.
deliveries necessarily, but birth is really important. It's
Yeah,
not the end of anything, it's the beginning of parenting. So how
sure.
women, how families birth, I have no vested interest in what that looks like. What I care
Right,
deeply about and very strongly about is how they feel about it.
right.
So, what I'm seeing on the other side of some of these births and situations is birth trauma, or,
Yeah,
a shook sense of security or lack of confidence, because we don't get enough education about what happens during birth,
sure.
and then we feel less like we are active participants and more like something was done to us, and then
Right,
we have this baby to take care of, and we're like, but I didn't even know how to do this, how do I do that? And that's when we tell moms, like, or families, you're just winging it, and they're like, yeah, but that doesn't feel safe, right, in that
yeah,
moment, because
sure.
just winging it got me this. and
Right,
and so I've seen on both ends, women who are active participants in their birth, but it doesn't go a certain way,
right,
feel so much better than someone who maybe kind of got what they wanted but felt railroaded. It's a
right.
night and day difference. And when it comes to
Makes
talking
sense.
to them about their babies, it impacts so much, and it's
Yeah,
heartbreaking. So I would really love to see more birth prep, not idealistic, birth plans, but
sure.
real conversations where we challenge our providers to say, no, 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 I don't need a medical degree, but I need to be heard. And I
Yeah,
have this question and I deserve an answer, not because I'm difficult, but because
yeah,
it's my body and my baby
yeah,
and my life. And we need
yeah,
to demand more of those professionals and praise, the high heavens for the good ones, and
yeah.
shout their names when we feel like we're informed consent and shared decision making. So I do that with them too. And then I teach a baby prep class, that's like a 4-hour comprehensive class about normal infant behavior, which we don't get told much about either.
Sure.
Because the loudest voices are the ones that tell us that babies do all these magical things that most babies don't actually do. So we talk about that and how to manage that.
Hmm.
Normal behavior is this. How will you manage it? Let's make a plan for that. And
Right,
then once their baby comes, I see them a couple times that first week, and then we kind of trickle me out, which is the saddest and best part of my job, right? So
right.
we have this great relationship where we're in communication, we work together, I watch them get more and more confident, and then hopefully they don't need me anymore, which is the best and worst part.
Yeah, yeah. You let them fly.
Yeah,
Cool. All
exactly.
right. Okay, so in terms of tips,
Yeah.
for someone preparing for postpartum, what would you say top three are?
I would say set your boundaries, first of all. So COVID was terrible and it was
Yeah,
really
I mentioned
isolating to parents, and it was really sad. I
first
had
timers.
clients who were
Yeah,
like, yes, who were like, oh, our neighbors didn't even know we were having a baby.
I know.
It was just bizarre. And
Yeah,
but the flip side, and I won't even say it was like, oh, it's a silver lining, but there was something in there about us kind of finding our true support people, right? Like when we were forming our bubbles and
hmm,
saying, here's what I actually need. There were some really hard decisions that had to be made. What I would like to see new parents post COVID carry forward is really being able to cut some of that fat in the early days of like, who are my real people? If
yeah,
someone leaves and you feel drained, or someone can't accept your no, it is not your responsibility to fix them for that. We cannot please
yeah,
everyone. You deserve time and space and true support around this transition. And where are you going to find that? So really
right,
look with like discerning eyes, like pretend like you're making a COVID bubble again. Like I will
sure,
probably say that to the end, of my days in this job is like, hey, hey kids, you won't know what COVID is anymore, or hopefully,
Yeah, right.
but like, let's pretend we're making a bubble of only bare minimum people that we need in our lives. And that's not to say you can't be gracious and loving and appreciative of other people. It just means it's okay to hold it real close in those early days, and that will actually serve you really well. So I would say be protective, create your boundaries, find the people who are supportive of you despite their own opinions about how it should go, right? Because we know what it's like to be surrounded but not supported. So that would be number one. And then number two would be really get educated about what babies actually do, because there's very little true information about that. We see things that, are kind of one-offs. And know that like normal infant babies go through constant change the first year. So that serves us really well. So just get educated. I do tell my clients that you don't have to read every baby book because you're going to write the book on your baby. But having some framework for what real, like anthropology wise is what I'm talking about. Not training, not, gadget necessarily heavy things, but just babies, we are carry animals as humans, but we treat our babies like they're not. We have all these contraptions to put them in. But when you look at a primate mom, and then know that like when your baby wants to be held, they're very normal, right? Like I wish we could study gorillas all day long and maybe we would learn something. Obviously that's not to the end of like exhausted parents that can't do it anymore. But that's a more realistic view of what our babies actually need. And I would love to see that. So get educated about normal infant behavior, and then just plan to like snuggle in and realize that, so this is the third thing, realize that your baby is an entire human from the moment they're born. And our job is to welcome them and let them tell us who they are. So however that needs to work for you. Does it mean more support and more people in your space? Because that's what drives you to keep motivated that way. Extra eyes on your baby so they can help you, see it. Or does it mean kind of like keeping people at arm's length, but just knowing, like entering that space of new parenthood going, this is a whole person that I invited into my life. And it is my job to accept them, welcome them, figure out what they need, and then we go from there. And it's because I think that the heartache is sort of when we think we have to tell them what to do. Right? Because they don't get that memo.
No.
They don't know. And so that's when we beat our head against a wall, and they're like, these parents are like, and I'm like, they're not down with that. Like, this is who they are. They're higher needs, or they're, or they're just real chill, or, our expectation of who they are ruins us more than actually who they are.
No,
so being
really
open to that new person. And of course, like all of those things include support that help you do it, never to the end of yourself, but in the best way, that you can do it. Like, wing it the best you can, sister.
You're right.
And family,
So
right?
True.
Yeah.
So true.
That's what's going to happen. So those
it
three
is really
things
true.
for sure.
Basically little CEOs are born. They become the boss. They're boss baby. Boss babies.
Yeah.
And that's a hard transition for parents going, wait, I'm the adult here. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
But
that's why
you're your boss
responsible
baby
to change and like figure it out.
Exactly.
Right. Like, also, because it's like, that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Like, wait, I'm the grown-up. Yeah, you are. So get okay. Because
exactly.
Right.
Get okay.
Get okay with it.
Dig deep and get okay.
And true. Just know that like it's constantly going to change. And kind of some of these things that we say, like time is a thief, or some of the little things that we say to get by, I'm kind of like, let's question those too, because time's not a thief. Like, you have more days that you've known this person, you are more confident, you are more fully yourself as the parent you're going to be every day. So let's like frame things that way, that it's a great gift to like know with certainty who your child is, and like and be the expert on your child. So like just changing those like kind of little things that we say to get through, I think will serve us long term.
And the little ones, I mean, the babies, they'd love the smell of you, even if you've got puke on you. They love,
for sure. You're
they love
you're
seeing
the
your
most
face
beautiful
way
thing
better
ever.
than that little mobile. You know, they
For
love
sure.
like you are the apple of their eye.
I say that
They
all the
just
time.
come
I'm like,
out.
look at the way they look at you. Look at the
Yeah.
way she's looking at you. I had a client that just was like on her baby's face. She's like, is this weird? And I'm like, no, it's great. She was like eating her, like literally. And I was like,
You
no,
know,
it's so protective. She goes, it's not weird to like just mouth kiss her. And I'm like, no, do it. Like it's perfect. Go
do you
ahead.
know what I saw something about that recently, which, you know, here I am. I had my first baby 13 years ago. And it
Mm-hmm.
was just on my third baby that I saw the reason why, you know, like my little guy, he's a big sumo wrestler. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just a tank. And
Uh-huh.
he's got the biggest cheeks. And they're just so delicious. There's
And they eat
just
them.
edible cheeks. Yeah. And so I'm always kissing his cheeks. And then I saw something that said the reason why they make the baby's cheeks so big is because moms who kiss them end up
Mm-hmm.
getting the bacteria that's closer to the
Yep.
baby's mouth in their mouth, and
Yep.
if they're breastfeeding, then they produce the antibodies
Yes.
for whatever bacteria is around their mouths that then
Mm-hmm.
comes out in the breast milk. And I'm like,
Yep.
holy crap, like
Yeah.
that's, our bodies are
It's all
so
connected.
amazing. It's
It's
so
amazing.
amazing. That blew
Mm-hmm.
my mind. And I was like, well, of course it makes so much sense. Our bodies
I
are
want to
so
eat you.
freaking brilliant. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, these little guys, they rely on us for everything. It's like
Mm-hmm.
relying on the kindness of strangers, but we aren't strangers. But I mean,
Right.
it makes so much sense. It's
How
amazing.
connected we are. But that's kind of
It's
what I'm
amazing.
talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like being open to your child. Like we are so connected. We just don't kind of like we don't know it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like so
I think
all
our
of these
bodies
things.
know it. We just
Yes.
try to control with
We
our
talked
minds, and
ourselves
we
out
gotta
of
let
it.
that go. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly.
We as
We're
adults
too
tend to do
smart.
that.
We're too smart for
The
that.
little babies, they use both hemispheres equally, and they've got like this
Mm-hmm.
highway that, you know, corpus callosum
Yeah.
going. And so it's like they're the brilliant ones. We are the ones who
Mm-hmm.
have kind of gotten a little lazy up here.
For sure. I agree.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything that you hear your clients say the most? Like, oh my gosh, where were you when I peed on my stick? Or, you know, what do you hear time and time again that might
Well, when we
resonate
have,
with folks?
conversations with moms of
Yeah.
older kids, like you said, 13 years ago, like, did you have any idea that someone would come into your home and see you and your baby in the same space and be able to help you with that? Right. So I hear that all the time. It's
Yeah.
moms of older kids who,
Yeah.
are done having children and they're like, God, I wish I would have had you, or I
Yeah.
wish I would
Right.
have known there was a you, or, I hear that all the time. Or,
Yeah.
just this idea that like things that are normal not being shared, right? So we're getting really good at saying like motherhood is hard. I
Yeah.
think we're getting better at that, right? Like, our mother's generation, or my mother's generation at least, was very much like, this we don't talk about it, we just do it, heads
Yeah.
down and do the work, and it's virtuous to suffer through it, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
this generation of mothers younger than me, because like I'm not having babies anymore,
Yeah.
is like, yeah, that's not okay. Like we're
Yeah.
not good with that, and I am for it. Like I am
Yeah.
for the way that like they are like, yeah, we don't accept that. But what we have to get better about is this idea that like, saying what is true in your own reality is just going to make it better for everyone.
Yeah.
Like some
It's
of them
true.
are very vocal about that, and others are still like, oh, it's fine. And then we see these, like what you said at the very beginning of our conversation about crafted social media stuff.
Yeah.
That can be really damaging to your
Totally.
reality when you're covered in spit up and you haven't
Mm-hmm.
showered or washed your hair, and you see this beautifully,
Yeah, it's true.
still picture,
Yeah, it's
mind you,
true.
and your moving reality is messy and
Yeah.
tear stained on both of both sides,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're like, what am I doing wrong? Well, listen, sister, you're doing nothing wrong.
Right.
But you just need someone to speak the truth to you, and that is
Yeah.
our responsibility moving forward when it comes to supporting each other in motherhood, is
Yeah.
saying what's true. So I would say, people tell me like, I had no idea that this person was suffering. I literally had a
Yeah.
client tell me, my sister is super mom and she's so great, and she had like her sister elevated to this point because she had had children years and
Right.
years before. And then when she ended up with postpartum, she's like, I just found out my sister had it too.
Hmm.
And I was like, wouldn't that have been so different had you guys had a conversation about it before?
Exactly. Right.
And so some just like kind of blowing the lid off of these, like, we have to keep things hush hush. And I think it's
Yeah.
coming, but I still want to encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah, no, it's so true, because it seems like some of these, social media profiles that you see, it's like the kids are the accessory, you know,
Yes.
where like everything's pristine and put away, and there's like, what
Right.
child, you know? And then you've
Right.
got the moms at home who are feeling like the real deal, and it's like, what the heck, you know, what's wrong
Right.
with me? That's so
Right.
true. I mean, adolescents, us as adults, like nobody knows how to deal with the social that we see and the
Right.
isolation and loneliness that it can amplify. Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I work, well, with COVID, I work inside the home now, but, you know, I work outside the home, and then I'm also a pretty engaged, active mom at the home. But I swear, my day at the office is so much easier than my day at home
Yeah.
because, again, I've got, you know, boss baby versus boss, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they rule me. You
Yes.
know, like it's
Right.
according to, oh, you're tired? Oh, okay, well, that's not convenient for me.
Right.
What? Like, yeah,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
nap time. You know,
Right.
it's just so true. And it's, you know, people, I think, you know, my mom made the choice to be a homemaker. That was the phrase she used back in the
Right.
day. And she felt really empowered by it because it was her choice, which is great.
Yeah.
But I remember her telling me that because she got judged from other, you know,
Mm-hmm.
moms.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, it was my choice, you know. And it's just so true about kind of the, you know, empowering the women
Yes.
to be you, and knowing that you are the absolute best mom to your baby.
That's exactly it.
Absolute best mom. There's no
There
other.
is no better mom for your
No.
baby. I say it to my clients all the time. I'm like, there's no one better for
Yeah.
this job than you. So what you have to figure out is not right and wrong. You have to figure out what is right for you, because that's
Yeah.
what's right.
Yeah. Be you. Be true.
Exactly. And it's this
Yeah.
idea, you know, the other thing I hear is this right? Is this okay? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you tell me.
Yeah.
Is it
Right.
working?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Like there are very few things that are an absolute no. So I always joke that, you know, as a child, I was like careening around in the back of a Buick Skylark because there were no car seats. Like I am
Yeah.
that
I
old,
know.
right?
No.
So yes, we are
Yeah.
not
Me
doing
too.
that. Like, but
Yeah.
those are like the absolutes. Like, please put your child in a car seat. Like, if you say,
Yeah.
is that wrong? I will say, yes, that is wrong. Please don't,
Yeah.
don't like
Right.
have them rolling around in the back seat like I was. But other
Right.
than that, there are very, very few
So
like
true.
absolutes when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So it is okay for your family, you know, within the walls of your home to look different than your neighbors. I celebrate that with you.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
should. We
Yeah.
shouldn't
It's so
all be
true.
doing the same things, because then we're not honoring the individuals within the walls of our home. And that is like
Yeah.
all that we need to be doing.
Yeah. No, it's really true. I love it. All right, so let's see. What makes I'm just looking at some of the questions
Yeah.
that were asked. What makes you feel like it's worked and your clients are doing well?
Oh gosh, I think it's when they don't need me anymore, which like don't
Yeah, which is
get me going
sad.
on it. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, when I hear less questions about what they should be doing and more like, hey, look what I figured out. You
yeah,
know, it's like that, because you know, it's not my job to come in and tell them what to do. It's my job to help them weed out the noise,
yeah.
and figure out what's true to them. So when they need that confirmation a little less, or you know, I get little messages about how great it is, then yeah, I feel like a raging
That's awesome.
success. But really, it's because they're raging successes.
Do you
Successes.
find that you're like if there is kind of like the women who are seeking you out, do they tend to be more type A
Oh gosh,
or
yes. I just told this joke today to a client because she goes, well, I'm type A. And I said, you know what's so good is that I've never had a conversation with a potential client where they didn't say that.
That's hilarious.
And I'm like, so you're perfect for me and I'm
Yeah,
perfect for you. But
gotcha.
seriously, like I did say that. I actually did have one client that I said that to, and she's like, I'm actually type B. And I was like, okay. But like in the prep, like the prepping and the
Yeah,
planning, I think that most of my clients would identify yes as type
yeah.
A. But it was adorable because I was like, well, we're perfect for each other, then it's
That's
set.
funny.
It is decided. So yes, I think that it's like people who have either said, you know, like I want this support, they are really keen on their mental health, which is important.
Yeah,
I think a lot of second time moms seek out postpartum support because of a rough first time, like the first
sure.
go round. So yes, I think it's like it's getting out there more, and it's people who want to be supported and want to make a plan for these transitions for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I could talk forever with you. And
I appreciate that. I'm
I'm just
enjoying
saying,
it too.
so the doula practice is not regulated. It's not a regulated industry yet.
No. Mm-mm. So when
And
I get
so,
calls about it, that's an interesting conversation too.
yeah, sure. But I'm just thinking, because going back to the beginning of the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, people finding their the right fit for their
Yes.
family with the superpowers. Is there even like in a grassroots level, like a kind of, I know it's like local, but is there, and maybe less local with COVID, but is there kind of like a directory of sorts, or is it just
Yeah.
like even that is kind of up to every type A or otherwise to
Yeah.
seek out and find?
Well, there's different certification agencies. So when I've had people
Okay.
contact me and say, how do I do this work? What I ask them to do is kind of seek out these different agencies. So,
Gotcha.
you know, there's lots of ways to certify.
Okay.
And then maintain certification. So there is doula certification. There's training, there's certification. So if that's important to you, then absolutely like ask for your doula's training.
Sure.
And then their superpower. But you know, to that end too, you know, if it comes to like a personality thing and a thing where like this is someone that can support you, I would never want to tell anyone don't ever hire a non, because this isn't medical care. This is very personal you know, work. So it's kind of what we talk about birth work in general. It's really tricky when we talk about certification and regulation, because if we think historically where we were all giving birth, it was with granny midwives, like, you know, back in the day, like people were, you know, women were helping each other give birth. And then we took it from them and kind of institutionalized it. So we have to be careful with that in the structures in our own culture when it comes to like, it has to be this and these credentials need assessed. I think it's important to vet the person and ask for references or say, you know, this person's going to be in my home. I need it to be a safety, you know, a safe thing. But other than that, you know, to get into the like they should have this and this feels like you know, I think
it has to be a fit. It has to be
so
energetic.
There are agencies, and then you
trust.
find, you know, your fit, like you said so succinctly, like your superpower, like what person do you want in that space? Because like when I explain, you know, just like across paper what I do, I'm like, okay, you're going to split yourself open one or two ways. Then you're going to have your breasts out and they're going to be full of milk and you're going to be kind of a mess and you're going to be sitting in a diaper and I'm going to come sit next to you and it's going to be so good.
And you're going to be terrified to take your first poop.
Right. And you probably just did. And maybe you cried.
And you're going to want help.
Show up. Right?
You're going to actually say, yes, you can wipe my bottom.
Yes.
And you're going to be so grateful to the nurse who's doing it.
And they're like, what? But then we sit face to face and we have a conversation and they're like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Right. But like when you're trying to explain those things to anyone, like, or a man, like, you know, like, when somebody's like, what do you do? And they're like, what? But those things are super intimate. So like, you know, and that's a vulnerable space you're in. So inviting someone in that, you know, go through, ask them like, where did you train? What do you, you know, what do you love to do in a home? What does it look like to have a visit with you? And ask them that, and then just make sure it's a good fit, like emotionally, good communication, you feel understood by them, and then go from there. But yeah.
Well, if I were to have another one, I would totally say, all right, let's go, April, bring it on. We can do it teleremotely, because I think we're in Texas. Are you still in Texas?
No, I'm in Ohio now.
Oh, okay, well, teleremotely, but there will be no more babies.
Okay, well, shop's closed here too, so.
We've got a starting 5, we're good.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good, nice number right there.
That's a good, nice number. That's a lot.
No, that's a great compliment. So I love hearing that. I'm like, sure, I would do it. People have said I should have another baby, so you can help me. And I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we've actually, this is one of my first that has ever run over. And as I said, I can talk forever with you, but
it's probably,
no, it's great. No, it's great. But for anyone who's been listening, I didn't see any questions come across, but folks are here for all different reasons. But if they want to reach out to you directly or see what you're kind of offering on social, then you are InThisTogether Doula, at InThisTogether Doula. So they can go ahead and find you, April, and tune into your car. What do you call them? The car series?
In my car stories. So it's
in my car stories. Okay.
Yeah. And I say in my car stories, and I tell people where I'm going, what I'm doing, what clients are doing, because I like being the conduit between clients too. So like if you have a baby and you're at home, like I'll talk to you about what I just did with a client in town, and maybe you'll learn something then too, because I'm like, hey, we were working with this, and back to the breast looks like this process, and you know, or this was a great tip that, you know, my client figured out. Like I had a client figure out a beauty fridge for storing pump parts in between pumps overnight. Little fridge in her bathroom. And so
That makes sense.
sharing sort of things like that as I like run around in my car from client to client is how I do that. So it's either
Awesome.
stoplight stories, which I also sing, or in my car stories.
Stoplight stories, like at a stoplight.
Yeah, I say stoplight stories, and I try to get it in real quick before it changes. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I have to go because it just turned.
And yes, officer, nothing to see here, officer.
I try not to do that, but sometimes. Awesome. Sometimes I'm running it a little tight, but yes, they can find me there. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thanks so much, April. It was a pleasure.
Take care. I enjoyed it.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Have a good
night. Bye-bye. You too. Bye-bye.